Hi, everybody. I hope that all of you out there take a look at the Economic Collapse blog. It's a very informative with some really incredible articles. I've been following it for a week now. But I wanted to share this article with all of you because it's very important. It's called Class Warfare is Being Used to Divide America, and it's working. At a time when America desperately needs to come together, we are becoming more divided than ever. The mainstream media and most of our politicians love to pit us against one another in dozens of different ways. And right now, class warfare has become one of the favorite tools for getting us to hate one another. If you're struggling in this economy, you are being told that the wealthy are the cause of your problems. If you have money, you are being told that the poor hate you and want to tax you into oblivion. Class warfare has already become a dominant theme in the 2012 race for the White House, and there will certainly be endless speeches given along these lines by politicians from both major political parties all the way up to Election Day. Class warfare will be used by both sides as a way to divide America and get votes. And the frightening thing is that it is clearly working. There is more hatred between the poor and the wealthy in America today than at any other time that I can remember. But hating people because of how much money they have or don't have is not going to solve anything. Instead, it is just going to cause more problems. The other day, Yale economics professor Robert Shiller told CNBC that the globe is already in a state of late Great Depression. The United States is heading into unprecedented economic and financial problems, and we desperately need to pull together as a country and solve these problems. But instead, our leaders are tapping into the politics of division and desperate attempt to get elected in the fall. Rather than focus on real issues and real solutions, our politicians attempt to make the wealthy or welfare recipients the focus of our debates. Well, you know what? Most people that are rich and most people that are poor are not purposely trying to abuse the system. Most of them are hardworking people that are trying to do the best that they can in a world that is increasingly going crazy. These days, the Occupy Wall Street crowd loves to talk about how evil the 1% is. But most of the 1% are people that have worked really hard and that have been fortunate enough to get some really good breaks in life. Yes, there are some among the 1% that do really bad things. The too big to fail banks and the big money managers on Wall Street should be held accountable for the crimes that they have committed. But most wealthy Americans are not trying to oppress the poor. Most of them are just trying to do the best that they can for themselves and their families. Neither are most poor people trying to abuse the system either. Yes, without a doubt, there are some that do not want to work and that want to live on government benefits indefinitely. But that is a minority. Most Americans that are receiving government benefits today would rather be working good jobs that would enable them to provide for their families. Most Americans understand that government handouts can never provide dignity and hope for a better future. But if you don't demonize the poor and you won't point out the decline of the middle class, many Republicans will call you a liberal or a socialist. And if you don't demonize the rich and you don't blame them for all of our economic problems, many Democrats will call you a pig or a fascist. Unfortunately, playing the blame game is not going to get us anywhere. The number of Americans living in poverty increased dramatically under George Bush, and it has also increased dramatically under Barack Obama. Our country is drowning in debt. Millions of our jobs are being shipped overseas. The middle class is shrinking at an astounding pace, and the Federal Reserve continues to destroy our financial system. Now, there's also the automation of technology, and that's increasing every day, and that's also eliminating a lot of jobs. Getting angry at the wealthy or the poor is not going to fix those problems, but it will distract us from the reality that both major political parties have been doing a horrible job. Sadly, Americans seem to really enjoy blaming one another these days. Just check out some of the slogans that have been seen on various signs at Occupy Wall Street protests. They only call it class warfare when we fight back. Eat the rich, feed the poor. The rich are wrecking the planet. So will destroying the lives of the rich solve our problems? Of course not. The truth is that we should want millions more Americans to be prosperous. We should be cheering for one another instead of tearing one another down. But that is heresy to many on the left. On the right, it is heresy even to mention that our tax system is fundamentally flawed and that it has thousands of loopholes that are being abused by the very wealthy. In a previous article, I detailed how many of the largest and most profitable corporations in America get away with paying absolutely nothing in taxes. There is something very wrong with that. Our income tax system should be abolished altogether. But if we do have to pay income taxes, then it is fundamentally unfair for some people and businesses to be able to pay little or nothing while the rest of us get absolutely obliterated by taxes. But if you try to say that to many on the right, they will look at you in horror. The other day, there was a New York Times article that detailed the extreme measures that Apple takes to avoid paying taxes. It turns out that Apple sets up shell offices all over the globe in order to evade taxation. That same article talked about how Apple has become a model which hundreds of other companies have followed. To giant corporations such as Apple, tax evasion has become an art form. So what is the solution to all this? Raising income taxes won't work too well because the tax lawyers are always several steps ahead of our politicians. The truth is that when taxes get raised, it is always the middle class that gets absolutely clobbered, and the wealthy always find more ways to reduce their exposure. Just take a look at Mitt Romney. He made more than $42 million in 2010, and yet Romney had an effective tax rate of only 14%. If I could find a way to have an effective tax rate of only 14%, I would be jumping up and down for joy, and so would millions of other Americans. Our tax system is deeply, deeply broken and needs to be thrown into the trash can. I agree. Abandoning the current tax system would not solve all of our problems, but it will be a start. Unfortunately, neither political party is willing to even consider this. Instead, the Democrats want to raise taxes a little bit, and the Republicans want to lower taxes a little bit. But neither alternative will do much of anything to solve any of the real problems we are facing. Our economy is dying, and it is not producing nearly enough jobs for all of us. When Barack Obama took office, the number of long-term unemployed workers in America was 2.6 million. Today, it is 5.3 million. At this point, an astounding 53% of college graduates under the age of 25 are either unemployed or underemployed. So where is all the change that Obama promised? Things just keep getting worse. Since Obama has been in the White House, 14 million more Americans have gone on food stamps, and more than 25% of all American children are enrolled in the program today. How will class warfare help those people? Will blaming the wealthy make things better for them? They are already receiving government handouts. Will increasing those handouts a little bit more fundamentally change their lives for the better? Of course not. What those people need are good jobs. But instead, both the Democrats and Republicans continue to pursue the same job-killing policies that have been destroying American jobs for decades. Without good jobs, the number of Americans dependent on the government is going to continue to grow. In a previous article, I detailed the explosive growth of social welfare benefits that we have seen under both Republicans and Democrats. The goal should not be to rape the rich and give out even more social welfare benefits. Instead, the goal should be to develop an economy that creates good jobs. Actually, we need to create an economy that's automated and self-sustainable, that allows people to get off the grid and to live on their own so they can be self-sufficient. We don't need more jobs. We need to get rid of jobs. It's the opposite, folks. We need to get rid of jobs and give people more freedom. That will definitely help any kind of economy, especially a resource-based economy. All right, continuing on. We need to have an economy that empowers individuals and small businesses. That's absolutely true, but not small businesses. We need to get off the whole consumer-based economic system. We need to get into a resource-based economic system, one that we automate everything around us so people wouldn't have to worry about working their butts off for 40 hours a week, all right, or having a business trying to sell products every single day. Instead, we have an economy dominated by big government and big corporations. We have an economy that funnels the vast majority of the economic rewards to a tiny elite, while most of the rest of us struggle. Just consider the following statistics. Back in the 1970s, the top 1% of all income earners in the United States brought in about 8% of all income. Today, they bring in about 21% of all income. The following is how income gains in the U.S. were distributed during 2010. Excuse me, folks. 37% of all income gains went to the top 0.01% of all income earners. 56% of all income gains went to the rest of the top 1%. 7% of all income gains went to the bottom 99%. In America today, the wealthiest 1% of all Americans have a greater net worth than the bottom 90% combined. According to Forbes, the 400 wealthiest Americans have more wealth than the bottom 150 million Americans combined. So what is the solution to that problem? Is it to attack the rich and take away all their money and give more government handouts to the poor? Of course not. Rather, we need to change the rules of the game so that individuals and small businesses are empowered to succeed. We need to decentralize economic power and dramatically reduce the undue influence that big government and giant corporations have over our economic system. We need to create an environment where almost anyone that has a good idea and that is willing to work hard can succeed. But instead of focusing on real solutions like shutting down the Federal Reserve, converting to debt-free currency, eliminating the income tax, shutting down the IRS, massively reducing the size of government, and getting rid of thousands upon thousands of unneeded regulations, the mainstream media and our politicians are going to continue to try to get Americans to blame one another for our problems. The efforts to divide America are working, and hatred is growing to unprecedented levels in this country. Eventually, this will lead to a mass rioting in our major cities, and that will make our problems far worse. Hatred and division are not going to bring us a better future. They are only going to destroy us from within. We don't need hate. What we need is more love and more solutions. Unfortunately, our leaders are leading us down a very dark path, and we are heading for a future that is going to be a complete mess. Well, it's already a complete mess now. You can see how most of us are just struggling to get by every day. But we're struggling because of the financial system is set up to keep people in poverty. All right? You already have the Federal Reserve destroying the currency by printing more money. All right? You already have big corporations, making huge profits and not worrying about the environment, not caring about what's happening with people's lives and how everything's hurting everybody. All right, we don't need jobs. We need to eliminate jobs. We need to give people access to technologies that can free people from work. Okay, it's not jobs. It's technology. It's the right technology. It's not the technology that is being used right now to control and enslave most, not just Americans, but most people on this planet. Okay, that's the problem right now. If you watch the movie Paradise or Oblivion, it explains everything about a resource-based economy. All right, I truly agree with this article almost 99.9%, except for it's not to increase small businesses, or to increase more jobs. We need to free people from the constraints of labor and servitude. You're probably going to ask, well, what will drive people if they didn't have to work? Well, if people didn't have to work, I bet most people would try to better themselves and help society by, contributing a lot more than they would. Right now, people are spending, what, 40 to 50% of their lives going to a job or business. They have no time to do anything else, either to educate themselves or to, maybe join a local community to help out with growing food. They can't do all that stuff. They have to go to a job, right? You understand what I'm trying to explain? But anyway, I just wanted to share this article, and I'm hoping that you check out my other article down below, The Future That We All Deserve, which will explain everything in detail. All right, if you have any questions, please ask me. I try to help as much as I can, because we all need to stick together and learn how to bring our ideas and solutions into the forefront, because that's what we need right now is solutions. And there is plenty of solutions out there coming right at us. We just need to know which ones to use at the right time. Okay? Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.